and welcome to the Wayfaring Panda. I'm Annette. Today I'm participating in the All About the Mouse Hop put on by Shannon Blinn, and it's where we scrapbook our Disney photos. So this month we were given this picture of Donald Duck to inspire us for our scrapbook layout. So it was a given that I needed to use my pictures that I took on our last trip to Disney World and went to Epcot. And these photos came from the Mexican boat ride because it has the three caballeros in it, which is Donald Duck, just all Mexican. And so I thought it'd be great to make some shakers. So I printed out these maracas on Canva, and then I had my brother scan and cut them out. And so to make it a shaker, I'm cutting out one pair of shakers with my oval cutting from the Creative Memories cutting system. To finish the shaker windows, I add some 1/8 inch double-sided tape from Scrapbook.com and add these leftover acetate pieces from 49 and Market and trim it off with some scissors. Then I use some 1/4 inch double-sided foam to put on the back of my ovals, and that'll create the shaker well. However, the 1/4 inch is too wide for some of the part around the maracas, so then I tried to trim it in half, and also the shaker bits that I wanted to use are a little bit thicker, so then I doubled up on my foam so it would be high enough to have my shaker bits. And the scissors I'm using are the ones from Holtz because they're kind of stick resistant, although you still do have to clean them from time to time, but at least it's easier to clean them off than some other scissors. I go around the inside of the shaker with my powder tool in order to take away the stickiness of the side of the tape. That way my shaker bits won't stick to the sides. Then I add some more shaker bits. These first ones are kind of a bright green. They look like sequins, but they're not quite like regular sequins, and I don't know where I got them. Then I add some of these round balls that came from Tall Mouse Designs. I can put a link in the description below. They won't be an affiliate link though because I don't have an affiliation with them, but just for information I'll put it in the description below. And so I use some red ones and then some that are kind of a creamy yellow, and that kind of goes with the colors in the maracas. Finally, I take off the backing of the double-sided tape and add my other set of maracas to the back of my shaker. And then I use some scissors to trim off the handles because I only want it to be layered where the actual shaker is. When I decided that I wanted to make this layout, I looked through all my paper stash to see what I had that had kind of a Mexican vibe, and strange enough, I found these really old papers from Photoplay that are from a kitchen collection, and I thought they looked very Mexican and go with the colors of the photos. So I'm using the flowered paper and the striped paper. It comes from a collection called What's Cooking, and the striped one is called In the Kitchen, and the yellow flowered paper is called Tablecloth. And then the white paper with flowers, I'm going to use that for the background, and that one is called Apron Strings. But these are older papers, so unless you find them on the secondhand market or just somewhere that has old papers, you probably won't find it out there. Now, I haven't challenged myself to tear papers, so this is the first time I've probably torn 2 pieces to put on one layout, and I decided I'm going to make this into a double page layout, so I'm just doing it reversed on the other side. Since the remaining paper already had a torn edge, I went ahead and took the paper over to my guillotine trimmer, which is too heavy to put on my glass mat because it's metal and I'd probably break my glass mat if I brought it over, so I trimmed these papers down to the same width as the ones that I tore. And then I decided I was going to do some inking around all the edges of the paper that will show, and I use barn door with my Holtz blending tool. And what I like about that is it kind of ties all the papers together and makes for a better cohesive layout. Also, some of the torn paper has white edges and some doesn't because I'm using both sides of the tear. But by using the ink, it isn't noticeable because now they both have red on the sides. I use my Nuvo Deluxe glue to glue down my torn pieces of paper onto my base page. I start with a striped piece of paper and I don't put it all the way over so that when I glue on my flower paper, it peeks out underneath. And then I do the same with the second page, but I put the torn paper on the opposite side. Off screen, I matted my photos in blue and red cardstock, and I cut out the mats with some dies that I have from Tall Mouse Designs, and it looks like torn paper, so I thought that would go really well with the torn look and it kind of add to the whimsy. So the first two photos I'm using on the first page are of the three caballeros on the bottom, and then the other one has the video screen. So this is kind of how it was originally on the ride, where it had all the videos of different places in Mexico. So this was my first time riding the ride where it had Donald Duck, and that was the new part of the ride that wasn't there back in the 1990s. And that's what I put on my journaling, and I just used this flowered journaling card that I had. I don't know where I got it from. I thought it went really well with the layout though, and so I just said that was the change. Now I also made some die cuts of Donald Duck with my brother's Scan and Cut. And I just cut that with blue cardstock. I used a quilting ruler and my glass mat to put on my stickers for my title. And I'm just using some alphabet stickers. That's from Sassafras Last. These are very old, so I'm sure they don't exist anymore. I have no idea where we got them from. And actually, my mom might have bought them. We kind of combined all of our stickers so that whoever needs them can use them. At first, I was going to just use the capital letters at the beginning of each word, but I didn't have the right lowercase letters, so then I just did the whole title in uppercase. And that's one thing I don't like about alphabet stickers is you end up not having enough of letters to finish, and then you end up with all these leftover letters you never are able to use. I just used the title of the ride for my title for the scrapbook page, which is Grand Fiesta Tour. I don't remember if that's what it was called back in the 90s when I had gone before, but really the ride was pretty much the same except for the addition of Donald Duck. I think this ride is closing again for refurbishment, so I don't know if they're taking Donald Duck out or repainting or whatever they're doing. I don't really think this ride needs to be changed very much because it's still a fun ride and the line moves quick. I think the problem with Epcot now compared to what it was in the 90s is there just aren't very many rides, especially ones that anybody can go on, so the lines get extremely long. Where back in the day when I worked there in the 90s, they had a lot of rides that you could ride for 40 minutes, like the World of Energy ride and World of Motion. Those rides, you might wait a while, but then you were on the ride for quite a long time. And actually, I don't think the lines got that long. When I did work at Body Wars, our line could get 60 minutes to 90 minutes long, but I always advise people to go somewhere else and come back later because that line always went down in the later afternoon to evening. I attached the photos with some mounting squares, and I attached the journaling card and Donald Duck with my Nuvo Deluxe glue. I did change my mind a couple times about where I wanted to put the photos and the journaling card. So eventually I ended up with Donald Duck over on the left and the journaling card on the right. Then I used some flowers that I have from Jolee's Boutique, and these are called mini layering flowers, and they're stickers so they stick right on. I put one on the photo, and then I also used those as well as some flowers that I printed out from Canva and cut them out with my brother's Scan and Cut. And I used those to build up some clusters around the journaling card and Donald Duck. On my next page, I'm going to be using 3 ride photos, And one of them is kind of fun because they have Donald Duck in as a piñata that the kids are hitting at. So he's there, but it's not like changing the whole ride. So they did keep this section the same. And if you haven't been on it, it's kind of like Small World. It has those type of animatronic characters on it. And since I'm not using my journaling card, since I already put that on the other page, I'm putting my Maracas shakers on this page, as well as another Donald Duck. And since Donald Duck was more of a silhouette that I cut out, you can turn it either way. So I'm going to have it face the reverse way as it was on the other page. I don't often overlap my photos because I take a lot of scene photos and I don't want to cover up beautiful scenery from a national park. But on the photo that I did overlap, there was kind of an empty blue space there, so the photos really aren't overlapping where there's any characters or anything going on. And also, since these are 4x6 photos, that was really the only way I could get 3 photos to fit on the page and also be able to put the embellishments. Once I decide where I want everything to go, I adhere everything the same way I did on the previous page. I adhere all my photos down with some mounting squares and use my Nuvo Deluxe glue to glue Donald Duck and the Maracas to the layout. And then I also use the same flowers to build some clusters around the Maracas and Donald Duck. Now with this layout, nothing really came from the same company, and none of it was purchased for this specific layout. I did have the idea about the shaker, but like I said, I just found that on Canva and printed it out and then just made it with the things that I already had, including the shaker bits. So whenever you're doing your scrapbooking, just look through to see what you have and try to use what you do have in your stash. And I mostly just looked at things that were the same color and sort of a similar style. I will put a list of all the products that I use in the description below. Some of these will be affiliate links, so they don't cost you anything extra to use, but I do get a small commission from any sales that the links generate, and that helps support my channel. Now, of course, a lot of the products I used are old products in my stash, so there won't really be affiliate links to those, but I'll just put what information I do have. But look through your stash and see what you have and mix and match, because like I said, the papers I had I used for a Mexican layout, but they were really cooking papers. But obviously this has nothing to do with cooking. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a YouTube hop put on by Shannon Blend called All About the Mouse. I will put the playlist at the end of this video. There'll be a link there that you can click, as well as I'll put the link in the description below so that you can find the other videos and get more inspiration. And it's always fun to see what everyone came up with. I don't know if people will take it literal and you'll see all kinds of inspiration about Donald Duck or Mexico. And if you are celebrating Cinco de Mayo, happy Cinco de Mayo. As a final embellishment, I add some pops of color from scrapbook.com. And the first one I'm using is the blue one called Gloss Royal Blue. And then I use one that's kind of like Stickles. It's a glitter glue. And it's called Ruby Glitter. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like. And if you're not already a subscriber, I'd really appreciate it if you can subscribe to my channel. Thank you and have a wonderful day.